We're back. Let's hear what Douglas Macgregor's got to say about the Ruskies.
Should Putin fear a war with NATO?
I think he does. I don't think he should, but he does. And this is very important, Judge.
Oh, I want to hear this explanation.
Yeah, this is perhaps the most important point of all to raise, and I'm glad you brought it up. If you listen to the globalist chorus, and I need to include, Starmer until he was gone. Now we have Starmer Light, his successor, Macron, Merz, others, von der Leyen, and so forth. These people are all calling for war against Russia. They're all talking about drafting eligible men into the military. They're talking about building up the arms industries and so forth, and everything is aimed at Russia. What's interesting about this is that none of what they're saying makes any sense. The forces they have are boutique forces. They're Lilliputian, Judge. They're tiny. If you dragged all of the British Army, the French Army, and whatever passes for the German armed forces into Ukraine, they would be in a corner of the West. They couldn't go very far because they can't sustain themselves. There is no logistical infrastructure for them. So I think there is a false front that these people are putting up, thinking that this is going to have some sort of desirable impact. It's not. What it is doing is it is creating the impression in the minds of Russians that they're about to go into another war with Europe on the scale of 1941. And of course, that's utterly disastrous. That's the last thing in the world you want the Russians to think, because in contrast to the Europeans, the Russians are ready for war. Let there be no mistake about it. They've identified the reserves. They have the factories, the manufacturing base. They have the equipment. They're ready for a major war. And if people continue to threaten them, they'll see the Russians become that much more belligerent. And I think we're going to see more belligerence this summer. That's something all of us have waited for, to be frank, because there is nothing to stop the Russians if they decide to move decisively on the offensive.
What is Putin afraid of?
I think he continues to counsel caution and patience. I suspect he thinks that these governments will be gone. Everyone was happy to see Starmer go. But I don't think that President Putin understands that what we're most likely to see in Europe are a succession of buffoons and fools, because to turn around the situation in Europe requires authoritarian leadership. You've literally got to have somebody come to power in these states in Europe like Cromwell, who essentially says, this is over, no more nonsense, round up all the illegals, all the unwanted migrants, ship them out, restore the rule of law, do whatever is required to restore industry, open direct talks with the Russians, rebuild the bridge to energy in Russia. All of things have to happen. And I think he thought that these kinds of things would probably happen by now. They haven't. And so I think he's predisposed now to listen to those who are counseling action.
And this is the thing, he's shown restraint. And for whatever reason, he believed Trump at Anchorage. He believed it. He thought that they were going to get some sort of deal out of this. And I mentioned this on one of my TikTok posts the other day, and someone in the comments rightly said, like, well, who started the war? Because I was saying it just needs to stop, like, stop funding Ukraine, put an end to it. I don't know the history of the Donbass, and apparently most of them speak Russian, so deduct from that what you will, but regardless of how this actually started, it is NATO that have expanded their borders east towards Russia. And the Russians, the public just want it over. Like, what are we going to do? If there was a draft, bro, my kids aren't going, like, we'll survive in the woods, like, don't worry about that. But my kids want to go and die for Israel and America. Our country's never been, our national security has never been threatened by Russia. If anything, it's a hindrance that we do not have Russian energy. A hindrance. Putin just wants to make deals, man. Look at China, look at Russia, look how they want to get on, man. It's this global hegemony by the neocons and the elites. The people in the files, wake up.
President Putin 2 days ago. After you listen to this, I'm going to ask you why he needs to make statements like this in an ostentatious and staged and produced. I'm not suggesting he's insincere when I say staged, but highly produced, highly stylized way. Chris, number 3.
Russia has encountered an unprecedented kind of pressure from the Western elites. They wanted to deal a strategic defeat against us on the battlefield. They wanted to destabilize our society, but they fail at everything. They continue to fund the Kiev regime that they use as a battering ram to destroy Russia. And let me emphasize that again, Russia can only be a strong and independent country, or there will be no Russia. There are only 2 paths. Whenever we show weakness, we are being ignored and being treated only with a violent approach. They always test us. They try to remove us as a global factor of power that stands against evil. Like I said, they have always failed. They will fail this time, and they will fail forever.
The need to make statements like this to leading members of his own government administration and some academics and think tank people.
Well, this is vintage Putin. Understand that President Putin has one foot in Tsarist Russia, the other foot in the Soviet Union in terms of history and background and knowledge and understanding. Everything that he does is deliberate, methodical. This is not someone who is given to off-the-cuff remarks, doing things along the lines of Trump, saying things and then sees what sticks. That's not Vladimir Putin. The Russian population has expectations of their leaders, especially the man at the top. The man at the top, if he does not appear to be in control, if he does not appear in a formal, direct fashion as Putin does, with all the trappings of national power around him, this weakens Russian confidence in him. So what you're seeing is not Putin's ego on display. He is playing the role of Russia's national sovereign. He is effectively as close as you're going to get today to a czar. And people will listen to him and believe him because of the image that he portrays, the way he speaks, and the confidence with which he expresses himself. He's made it very clear that Russia has been through these things many, many times. He's not wrong about that. Going all the way back to the Mongols that governed and occupied much of Russia for 300 years, and going forward, Russia has been through many, many invasions. They've actually been invaded by the Poles, who marched right into the city of Moscow and established a Polish Tsar. It took them an entire year to stuff this Polish Tsar into the largest cannon they could find and fire him back to Poland, but they have not forgotten. So he's saying things that resonate with the population. And remember, Russians are hearing through the news, unfiltered, uncensored, the kinds of things that Merz and others are saying. And that's the problem. People are taking them seriously. And if Putin stands up there and says, I have made the decision to mobilize the nation, war is imminent, that's what will happen. That's not something we in the West should want to hear. We should be doing the opposite. We should be sending very different signals. I think we're being very stupid.
Very stupid indeed. Play silly games, win silly prizes. This is the thing, like, everyone's taking Putin's generosity and kindness for weakness, similar to what happened in Iran. This doesn't end well for Europe, trust me. The drone factories and such in the West, Germany, France, Sweden, the UK, there's one not far from me. Could you blame them? I'll keep saying it, could you blame them? But that's it for this one.